Okay, you want the story?
Yeah.
So, in my first dog that I had when I was growing up was a Timberwolf Malamute, and he was huge. His name was Bigfoot. He was the love of my life. And when he was 2 or 3 years old, around there, I was in the backwoods of Florida off the St. Johns River, and I heard him scream. And I went outside out of my tent, and he came running up, and he was already swelling because he had been bit by a moccasin right here. And I was in a remote area, no cells. I tried to find a vet, finally got the sheriff of the local town, and he said, "You're not going to find a vet, they're all golfing right now." Well, by then my dog couldn't stand up anymore, and his face was swollen shut. And the next day I made it to this little market with a payphone, and it was like a liquor store and a 7-Eleven and a payphone. And I finally got a hold of a vet, and he said, because it was such a large moccasin and he was bit right here, he said, "You know what?" He said, "You can bring him in and we can put him on IVs, but you're probably going to spend a lot of money and the dog's probably going to die. And if he even does live, he's going to have so much brain damage." So I got off the phone and I was sobbing. And I was just sobbing. I was like a little kid blowing snot. I was sobbing so bad. And all of a sudden my inner voice said, "If you have to put your dog down, then you need a shot of something." What's odd about that is I didn't drink very much. So this was really in opposition to me. But I go into this liquor store and I'm standing there and I'm looking at the small bottles and I'm kind of stalled out because I'm still crying, but I don't know what to get because I don't drink a lot. And there's this old black man in there, grizzled with Oshkoshes on, and I have to speak like him. He said, "Now, girl, why's you crying so?" And I said, "Oh, my dog got bit by a moccasin and I have to put him down." And he says, "Now, girl," he says, "you just give that dog sweet milk and raw egg. Draws the poison." And I'm like, "Ooh, what?" And he said, "Sweet milk and raw egg draws the poison." And I look at him and I'm going, "What's sweet milk?" And he tells me it's regular milk. I'm not from the South. It's just regular milk. It's not soured milk like buttermilk. So now he's got my attention. I'm like, "What do I do?" And he says, "You go to that store." He says, "You get you a gallon of milk and a dozen eggs and you beat it up." He says, "You pour it down that dog. Draws the poison." So I'm thinking to myself, I'm in a remote area. This is a backwoods Florida man that never had a doctor or a vet. I'm doing it. Whatever I was going to buy for liquor, I put off. I go walking out of there. I get the eggs. I get the milk. I go home. I mix it up in my tent in a big bowl. I start spooning it down my dog. He can't get up anymore. Even when I lift him, he just goes back down. And he's lifeless, basically. And I realized I had a turkey baster in my camp stuff. So I took that and I did that whole bowl. 4 hours later, he crawled. The next morning, he stood up. He was really wobbly, but he stood up and he walked out of the tent into the ferns because he hadn't been able to tinkle, and he was so wobbly he went to lift his leg and he fell down tinkling on himself. That dog lived till he was 17 years old. He had no brain damage at all. He had a little bump on his nose right here for the rest of his life. Sweet milk and raw egg draws the poison. That's my story.